What's up, everyone? How's it going? Welcome to a brand new Demystifying Post-Production Month. My name is Elly Wade, and I'm joined with two very special guests, lead ZBrush artist and trainer Ian Robinson, and a very special guest, senior 3D artist at Adobe, Nick Sharma. How's it going, guys?
Hello,
it's going great.
Hi,
Good to see you both.
Yeah.
Hey to Sparky Face in the chat. Hello, nice little smiley emoji there. So before we get into all the goodness of what we're going to be doing and hearing a bit more about Nick and the stuff that he does, I thought I'd talk about some of the other events we have going on at Maxon. So if you head over to the maxon.net events page, which is this page here, you can see all the great stuff that we have going on. These are all of the live events as well as the live streams, everything from How Design to this series, Demystifying Post-Production, and things like Ask the Trainer. We have Maxon Color. If I just scroll down, you can see. And if you just click one of those, you can register, get notified, and see all the great stuff that's happening for that particular event. Also, if you ever miss any of these sessions and you think, oh, wow, I wish I'd seen that recording or that session, then don't worry, because as a lot of you know, everything gets recorded and gets uploaded onto the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, which is this channel here. Everything is timestamped, put into its playlists, and so you can definitely rewatch anything that you miss. And yes, this session is also recorded and will be uploaded later today and timestamped thanks to the amazing Dr. Sassy. So don't you worry about that. Also, just as a quick little reminder for those of you to say thank you for being part of our sessions and being part of our amazing creative community. We love to give away free t-shirts, kind of like this one that I'm wearing here. So all you have to do, head over to this special merch link. I think it's just been dropped in the chat now. Enter the super secret code, which is ZBrush and the Substance, and then you can grab yourself a t-shirt. All you have to do is pay for shipping. You get one t-shirt, just the one. All you have to do, pay for shipping, which will vary depending on where you live. Cool.
Awesome.
So all that stuff out the way, all those bits out the way.
Then we could say a proper hi to everyone. Hi, everyone.
Hi to everyone. I can kind of take a breath and say hello to everyone in the chat. So let's cut back. Hey to Greg. Hey to Matthew. Hey to Ethic Design. Jose, Bob, Rishab, Shannon, Deborah, Miles. Hey everyone! Thanks so much for joining us.
I also have another chat over here too, because I know some of us are joining from the ZBrush YouTube stuff as well. So we have Layla, and we have Design with Menish coming through here. We have Lord of Rings, Lord Louis Riggs, and then Irene. We have a ton of people here. Thank you all for being here. This is super awesome. So if you've ever had any questions whatsoever about ZBrush to Substance Painter, how do I do that in any way, shape, or form, whether you're using scan data or whether you're coming in hot with like your own character design, we actually have Nick here to help guide us through all that beautiful stuff. So Nick, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing great. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, and then we're going to talk about quite a bit today. So I know we have an hour, but I'm going to cover a lot. So I mean, Ian and Elly and anybody in the chat, feel free to just stop me anytime and I can talk through it. Should I do a quick introduction or just hop right into it?
Yeah. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so
tell the guys about yourself.
I'm a senior 3D artist over here at Adobe. My background actually is in industrial design, though. So I worked at sportswear companies like Adidas, Timberland, Lululemon, for instance. I also teach at Art Center College of Design. So I cover 3D materials over at Art Center and a bunch of other 3D software. Taught ZBrush in the past, Gravity Sketch as well there. So dabble in a lot of different programs. It's kind of hard to juggle at times because everything changes and different clients. It's always updating. But yeah, just happy to kind of walk through everything in the process for everyone here.
Awesome. That's awesome, man. Well, cool. Well, we are excited to just see your workflow, see everything you do. And I've already had a sneak peek, and I'm going to tell you guys, you guys are in for a treat. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for the series.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. Cool. I can, I think, I'm not sure when they want to start streaming, but I can start whenever it's going.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's put the screen
throw that on there.
Get the magic happen.
A bike. Yeah, I'm also on my laptop, so I'm blind a bit. So I usually have a second monitor. I'm out on a work trip. But if there's anything that pops up, just let me know and I can stop and readjust there. But you can see the render here?
Yep, we can see the render. Yeah, tell us about this beautiful bike. This looks amazing.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this actually was a personal project. I actually own this bike, and I've, for a long time, I really want to have a digital clone of it just to kind of explore if I wanted to repaint it in the future or if I wanted to change out the wheels. So it's been on the back burner for a while, and I had a little tiny gap of like a week and a half to actually work on this bike. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take it. I'm going to refine it. And knowing that I had a big time crunch, I'm like, all right, I need to be super efficient with this process. I can't really model every single nut and bolt in here by like measuring it out. So what can I do to kind of get really close to what I actually have in the most efficient way possible? So kind of walk through some of the tips and tricks and kind of things I did to make this process a bit faster. I can walk through some of the other vendors here while I'm speaking. But yeah, to what we're going to cover today, I started off by getting a photo scan of my bike. So I used ZModeler to process that photo scan, brought that into ZBrush to clean it up. So use that as the photo scan as a reference and then remodel that in ZBrush. Bunch of assets that I pulled from other asset libraries to kind of help with some of the smaller things like the wheel sets that would take quite a bit of time to model. Brought that into Painter and then finally rendered that in Cinema. So we'll cover all that. It's going to be a little fast, but if there's anything, just let me know I can talk about it. Cool. So, was it?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just saying awesome. I do that. I make random sounds and I say random things and high support of everything. So you're going to hear beep, boops, and awesome all the time. So don't worry. Cut.
Oh, it's good. And just feel free again, just like blurt it out because I'm a little bit blind. So if there's anything you want me to stop, just go ahead and do that. Cool. Yeah. So let's walk through the start here. So to start off, because this bike already exists and I wanted to reference that as like my base here, I wanted to accurately recreate it one-to-one. I didn't want to model it and take tape measure out and try to be like, all right, here's the bar length, here's the wheel length. That would take forever. So what I did is in Sampler, there's a way for you to kind of take your you can take photographs and process them in a photogrammetry process. And so I'm here in Sampler, and over here on the left-hand side is this 3D objects beta. So what this lets you do, if I click on the plus sign here and add an object, this lets you take in photographs and it will process a set of them into a rough 3D model. So those photographs too, they can be kind of rough. I was actually at my family's place when I had like a little bit of time to get this idea out. So I'm like, all right, I need to set my bike up. I need to like photograph this quick. So this is not an ideal setup for your photographs, but it is to kind of show like even with like bad scene setups, the program is smart enough to actually go and extract the actual asset that you really want to use here. So I walked around with a DSLR for this photo set. I've also used my iPhone before as well and gotten great results. But yeah, I just walked around this asset again, like I was at a family's place, lots of mess in the background. This is like the worst conditions you can ever have for doing a photogrammetry scan. Also, like no room to walk around it. But even with these like non-ideal setups here, I'll kind of go through what it looks like to drag and drop this in. I'm able to drag and drop this photo set in, and I have quite a bit of photos here. Usually with what we found internally at the team, about like 90 to like 120 photos is like a good sweet spot. You usually get great results out of that. But all you do for the program is you take those photographs, you drag and drop them into this 3D capture beta. And there's a couple of things that we can do to kind of help mask or kind of identify that object in the center here. My laptop's not super powerful right now. It's quite a bit of apps running in the background, so I'll kind of speak to this. But you can mask, you can use bounding boxes after it pre-processes the images to help identify what that object is. And that final result, to kind of give an idea of what it looks like, is here. So again, like not super ideal results, but for what my purposes is and knowing that I'm going to remodel this was definitely workable for me. And awesome. It was...
sorry to interrupt real quick. You said so like 90 to 120 photos. That's like the sweet spot for anything, even with this not super ideal setup. That's like the good amount of photos.
Yeah, and you can definitely take more than that. Like the process can take quite a bit more than 120 photos. But for the majority of projects we found, it's been like 90 has been good. And the way to kind of go through it, usually what I like to do is take one like eye level. So I try to get down to like the center of gravity for that object. So wherever that center is, do a set of photographs around. One from like a top-down point of view. So I'm trying to capture everything from the top view. So take a set of those, and then one looking out from the bottom down. So I'll try to get as low as I can to the ground, take a photo set around there. About like 30 each, so like every 5 degrees or so, 5, 10. And yeah, you can get some pretty, good results here. Again, this was like not the ideal setup, but the overall form, especially, knowing that all that background information, that noise was there, I'm still able to read like the main frame body itself, get some of the details here, and like even like the kind of graphics is still kind of popping up there. So the process again, like in sample, which I think actually crashed because I was trying to load up that photo set. I know my laptop is struggling a bit here, but after it gets that photo scan, I'm able to take this asset and bring that into ZBrush to reference.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, so here's the cleaned up model in ZBrush here. Again, I brought that in and then I just re-sculpted over that form. The way I process this, though, is actually, I started off quite a bit here. I'm just going to walk through that. I'm sure people are super familiar with this, but I started off and just really used ZModeler for the majority of the asset here. So bringing in the basic cube, initializing it down so it's the base simple geometry form, and then using ZModeler here, make them loops, and then grabbing these assets. The fact that I can use infinite depth too, I think that was in 2019. This has been so nice. I am so happy that exists.
Yeah, that and the infinite move brush for organic sculpting as well has been my top 2 favorite brushes or settings. So
yeah, no, the infinite move, like when it came out, I was like, oh my god, this makes a lot so much easier. I was so happy to have that come out.
Sweet.
Yeah. So here, it's kind of going through, I won't model the entire thing, just to kind of illustrate the point though. With that photo scan asset in, I was able to go through, remodel the main bodies of this bike here. So that's the frame itself, the saddle, the bars, the seat post. All of that was done with the ZModeler tool. Even like the brake levers here and the shifters were all ZModeled. The only thing, so a couple other, their unique kind of modeling process here is actually these tubes. Go ahead and hide that piece there. So these tubes for the brake levers here, the way I've gone about doing that is bringing in just a simple cylinder. And what I did for those is actually use the bend curve tool. Here, let me just kind of scale it up. And I'll just do a quick ZB mesh just so it doesn't stretch polygons out too much. But here in the kind of move gizmo, if you look up here at the gear for customize, I use bend curve quite a bit. And this has also been a super nice tool to have, especially when doing industrial design, when I need to make sure surfaces are as clean, as smooth as possible. Trying to use the move brush, like it's great. I love using like my move brushes, especially for organic stuff. But when it's precision, industrial forms, when everything needs to be as smooth as possible, the bend curve tool has been great because it keeps everything nice and smooth and consistent. There's not like these weird, like little warbles that I get sometimes. I'm using the move brush and the focal shift is not quite right, and then I'm trying to move multiple pieces together. Bend curve keeps everything nice and smooth throughout. So I've been using bend curve quite a bit for my process for a lot of projects. But here it's been nice because I can actually go ahead and you can kind of see that, get a nice curve in this form here.
And what's really cool about this too is that, this is what sometimes we call a hidden gem in ZBrush, because a lot of people who, especially when you're getting started, they'll get started with the gizmo, but then all those icons at the top, that cogwheel, that opens up a just plethora of new tools for you to use. I've also just dropped a link to our free series of getting started in ZBrush in the chat. So if you guys are not too familiar with these tools, because we're not covering a straight how-to, more of a pipeline and a process, and we're going to get more into substance, you could definitely follow along with those series. But the stuff he's showing right now we cover all that in that getting started.
Yeah. And actually, I'll kind of pause here because I've been talking quite a bit because, I don't know if you see anything in the chat or if you have any questions, but I can speak to stuff in Sampler or a bit in the modeling side here if there's anything while we're on topic.
No questions at the moment. Everybody's just kind of enjoying the show.
Cool. Awesome. So again, most of that frame and these cables here, a lot of ZModeler using that bend curve feature to kind of create that braid cable there. The only parts that I actually had to grab from outside resources, again, were the cassette here, the Groupset, the wheels. So if you're familiar with bikes, if you look at your rear and front derailleur, there's a lot of components here. It takes a lot of time to model that, and I had about a week to do this. So I had an old bike that I modeled, and I tried to bring those in. The thing is, I modeled that Groupset maybe 6 or 7 years ago, so it didn't match the look of the bike. It's a very old-fashioned Groupset compared to this very new modern bike, because I think this bike was from 2021. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. I need to find like some resources. I don't have a ton of time. So some of the assets here, like the wheel set here, the brake calipers, are actually grabbed. Let me switch over to Chrome here.
We do have an important question, actually. It's super important, okay? Like, this is groundbreaking. And I'm going to try not to butcher this because I'm not a bike guy. But he says, excellent bike, man. Team Scram or Team Shimano?
Oh.
Maybe you could correct me. Please
do.
Man,
I'm going to get into some hot. Wow. I play both sides. I'm going to be that guy. I play both sides. So I'm Shimano for my road bikes. I have a gravel, a road, and a mountain bike. And actually, here, this is going to be a little bit impromptu. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think it will kind of enlarge myself up here. Okay. Even on my Airbnb, I'm on a work trip. So even on my work trip, I'm still bringing my bike along with me.
Nice.
So I love bikes. My mountain bike is SRAM. My road and gravel bikes are Shimano. And I have, for people who know what this is, the mountain bike is mech. The gravel bike is a Di2 setup. So that's wireless or kind of automatic wireless shifting. And then the road bike is also mechanical as well.
Awesome. Stump jumper is the best, Oscar says.
Yeah. I love this thing. It has been amazing to fling around. Its trails are fantastic with it.
Awesome. We love impromptu rants and tangents, so that's what we do here.
Speaking of impromptu, oh wait, there we go. I was like, wow, very, very timely.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the modeling here, right? I didn't want to do absolutely everything, considering I was short on time. So some of the assets I actually grabbed, especially the wheel set here, from the Substance asset library. So I think most people know about the materials from Substance, but there's actually 3D models that you can grab too as well from our libraries. And these can range from, like there's humanoid figures, there's lab equipment, there's fossils, there's also industrial forms. So I grabbed a few things just searching for them on the website itself. These come in as FBX files for the most part. And what's great about them is that, going through, you can kind of see some of these forms here. Even if I don't find the exact right thing, there might be a set of them. So, I'll have to dig through here quite a bit to find it. But yeah, like I grabbed a few of these mountain bike wheels. I don't think I got the mountain bike wheel here specifically, but there's a ton of wheels I grabbed. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't want the tire here, but I just want that wheel set. So I was able to grab that model, remove the tire from it, put it on the bike, and then keep going with everything else. So that helped save a ton of time, because a lot of small components, I'm like, I just don't want to, man, I'm on my Friday. I want to get this done. I just want to have like something nice to work with. And I don't want to spend the time getting every single bolt just right. So this has been a super nice save, not just for this project, but for a lot of my other projects in the past as well.
Wow, that's a really quick way to get assets really fast. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and it's great too, especially when I'm getting into rendering. Like having background elements brings more life to it, helps set the scene. So it's like, I have this cool like lamp, or I'm doing like a kind of couch model, but I don't want to figure out like the picture frame. I don't need to model out the rug. So going onto the asset website and finding all those small things to kind of fill out the background has been great, because it saves time and helps bring more life to your final renders, your final shots. It's been really nice to have.
Oh yeah, I bet. Absolutely. Especially when you're trying to get something done, and that's the idea of that. It's like, you don't always need to model everything, and some of us even that utilize or have a Cinema 4D background, a lot of times, like we have capsules. It's like, go and grab some assets, get some stuff quickly so that you can move with your project, stay creative. That's always such a cool approach.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can also to spend time on like the things that you actually like to do. So I can spend more time, modeling this out, like the hero object, or painting it, or setting the scene. So it's been it's super nice to have that.
Yeah.
Cool. So now that the modeling was complete, I got all of the components in, I'm ready to go. I had to UV unwrap this, and I think, Ian, you said you were going to talk about this in next week's demo with actually Wes, who's going to be joining in, but doing some quick UVs to just have fun projects. Yes. I'm doing actually something very similar here, where it's like, all right, well, I identified what parts of the bike where I actually needed precise UVs, and I just spent time on there. Everything else I just did a quick unwrap for. So the areas that I knew I needed to kind of make sure were correct were the tires themselves, and especially this bar tape, which might not seem like the most prominent thing, but I'll kind of speak to that in a second. The tires, though, I knew I wanted to get some kind of nubby, kind of aggressive tire tread in there. So what I needed to do, actually this might be an older model, I'll actually walk through it right now then. What I needed to do was get a UV unwrap where I have this middle part of the tire here, like this kind of apex of this curve, isolated, so I can actually put a tire tread on there and paint here super quickly, so I don't have to worry about trying to match up from a quick UV unwrap, because that would be pretty time-consuming and challenging to do. So for the tires especially, here, all I did was turned on local symmetry, and I'm going to use a simple mask from Polygroups, and I just grabbed, I actually turned symmetry on first, but I just went ahead and grabbed roughly that middle section there. If I wanted to get a little bit more of that apex curve, so maybe I want the nubs to go a little bit kind of wider than what I grabbed here, I can just do a simple feathering of that mask and sharpening that up again, and flip that mask over. So now I got a nice kind of apex of this curve here. It is a simple group mask just to kind of get that section isolated as its own polygroup. See that there? And then when I go to UV master and I go to UV unwrap, that area of that tire tread kept itself intact. So I was able to drop in a tire tread texture on that, which I'll show you all in a second, and didn't have to fuss about trying to match up from a UV kind of quick unwrap there.
I love it.
Yeah, and again, it's like I don't need to do everything. I just need to do like certain things, because something like the bolt thread, I don't need to like go ahead and UV unwrap that. It's going to be a small piece. I'm going to throw a simple metal material on there. So I just did a quick UV unwrap for like some of those smaller components that didn't really need it or didn't really matter to me as much. Now, the other piece that was a pain, especially for I know there's a couple of bike fans in here. If you've ever tried to bar wrap your road bikes with like bar tape, it is a pain in the ass. And in 3D, it is also a pain. It is not fun to try to do bar tape. This was actually a little bit of an adventure. So what this is, if you're kind of not sure what I'm talking about, on road bikes, they take this long strip of like usually foam, different types of foam composites or cork, and they wrap that around the bar, because the bar itself is some metal based, usually like aluminum or carbon or some sort of other metal composite. So to keep your hands protected and to absorb some of the vibration, they'll wrap it in that tape. Now it goes around and around and around the form. So initially I was like, all right, let's see if I can model that in. That's not happening. I tried modeling it in sections, tried using the bend curve. I actually even exported this bike out into Gravity Sketch and used Gravity Sketch to do the surfacing or tool to go around the form. That probably got the closest, but it was still so many points and so kind of fussy to work with, especially as areas here where, ideally you'd cut the tape and kind of wrap it around that form. It makes it challenging. Plus, this bike, if you're kind of wondering why does this bike have 2 bar stems, this is the Canyon Grail. Canyon Grail, the carbon fiber one. So you can go onto their site. You can buy this bike. The reason why there's 2 levers or 2 bar stems here is if you hold the top one, the carbon flexes and bends while you're going over loose gravel, so it absorbs some of the shock from your hands. So this is a weird bike, and it's weird bar tape. And there's a lot of challenges when it's trying to do that. Yep. So what I did here is after, a few different trial and error processes, I'm like, all right, would this work? Okay, that's not going to work. This is not working out either. I knew I was going to just do a kind of height map, displacement, extrusion, and painter to get that effect. So I had to find some seams. So I did some hidden seaming here, like underneath the form, down here. And I think this is the older model, so it doesn't have that on here quite yet. But I kept the seams kind of hidden where ideally, for the most part, you wouldn't see that, knowing that I wouldn't be able to get it quite right. But that was the only other piece where I had to do some more minute unwrapping here on the form. Also, there's a lot longer conversation about bar tape than I think anybody expected.
No, but that's super important. Actually, I mean, wrapping anything. There's actually a model I did. Some in the chat might know it's the Screaming Santa Cruz hand, and it actually has a ton of wrapping all over the entire hand, and it was ridiculously fun and challenging all at the same time. While you're doing, I will find the stream that I did it, and then I'll share that for people to follow along. But, that also gives me some ideas of future tutorials. So those are things to keep in mind. And it's good having those conversations because, I mean, let's be honest, 3D is amazing and fun, but at the same time, we always hit challenges. And when we do, troubleshooting, I think, is the best experience for learning.
Yeah. And I would love to talk to you about like different ways to tackle UV unwrap like that, because man, I was sitting there for probably like 2 hours trying to figure out what the best process was for this. And I got like, I give myself like a B, maybe a B plus on it. It's still something where I'm like, oh, let's just not look too closely at that right there. But yeah, so here we are in Painter. So the bike here, you can kind of see it's already been completely painted, but I'll walk through some of the steps here. So some of the kind of unique kind of ways I went about this. I'll start off with the tires because we were just talking about that. So these tires here, I select that here in my layers. So that mountain bike tread that I wanted to apply on, because I was able to use the polygroup and then UV unwrap that polygroup selection, if I switch over here to my 2D and 3D view, you can see the UV maps here. So I was able to get these nice kind of straight forms. So I was able to keep the tire tread like perfectly in line with the tire itself. So you don't have to kind of fuss and worry about that. And that was just something knowing in the back of my head. It's like, oh, that's going to be a really prominent piece of the model. And I want to make sure it really comes alive there. So I just did that ahead of time, the results came out fantastic here. If you're kind of looking at the screen and you notice something very weird, it's over here in the layer stack. It's an ice cream cone texture. So one of the things I tell our students here is like, if you're going through and you're trying to texture something and you can't quite find the right material, like let's say you need like a rough metal or some sort of diamond shaped metal pattern, and nothing is coming up from the library and you don't have the time or the resources to make something yourself. One thing it takes a little bit of practice to kind of look at materials this way, but I try to look at the materials from the Substance library and any other materials I grab and try to dissect the materials almost. So I'm like, all right, what would this look like without the color? What would it look like without the roughness, without the height? And so I'm dissecting the materials kind of like when I'm looking at it to be like, all right, I need like some sort of kind of grainy, rough pattern here with like a diamond shaped texture or something like that. And so I knew that this ice cream cone texture, like if I removed all the layers for it, it had this like kind of enough like handmade kind of diamond shaped pattern. I was like, okay, if I scale it down, it's going to look pretty good here. Because it looks like it's manufactured pressed here, a little bit worn or stretched out. Like it doesn't look perfect because all the other diamond patterns I found on the site were like they were machined out perfect. I'm like, it's a rubber. It's going to be malleable. It's going to bend. It's going to distort after you manufacture it. So I didn't want it to be super tight, clean, sharp lines. So it's a little bit chick. It's a little, kind of weird. But yeah, taking materials and just trying to look at it, the layers of them, and use whatever you need to kind of get that same effect. You can actually get really nice results out of it. So yeah, there's the ice cream cone kind of sidewall texture there for the rubber itself. Going through some of the parts of the bike here, though, the overall frame here. So this pattern, super cool pattern that I've had for a little while. Just like a kind of, squiggly line repeat. It's a tileable texture created in Illustrator. And to apply to the bike here, all I did was a projection across the form. Let me select that and select the layers in here. So yeah, that texture here, I knew if I tried to kind of apply it again, like I did a quick UV wrap for this, so I just split the bike down the middle just to get a UV wrap out quick. So I knew with a pattern like this, where it's tiled, it's organic, it's a little bit, you can easily see the lines, like you can't really hide flaws here. I knew I had to do a projection here just to make sure the texture looks great. And even across these forms, because the bar of the frame is pretty small in terms of width, it doesn't look bad, or it doesn't look like draw my eye too much when I'm looking at the form and be like, oh, this is obviously like a projection map. It's only on these small forms, and the bike itself is shaped to the point where it's like, it looks pretty good, at least for the most part. I think maybe a little bit here I'd kind of touch up, maybe kind of put a graphic or something across that top bar just to kind of hide the fact that it's stretched there. But overall, like the texture, I really like how it came out. I was able to use a fun pattern, especially on something where I had a short amount of time to do that on. Now, going around here to the actual bar tape, again, this is the part where it's quite a mess. So this bar tape, again, was a pain. And what I've set up to do here was I have a base cork leather here across the entire bar. There you go. You can see it a little better now. So I have this cork leather applied across the bar tape itself. And then for these kind of wraps, they're not perfect. They're actually kind of try to hide some of the seams underneath the shifters here. But what I did is I grabbed, it's on this side here. Yep. So I just grabbed a simple fill. And for people who might be coming to materials for the first time or trying to understand like how materials work, usually materials are dictated for PBR material workflows. They're dictated by color, height, roughness, metallic, and normals. Those are the 5 most common like PBR materials you'll come across. For the majority of materials, might get opacity and some other effects in there. But I knew that for this section here, all I wanted to do was kind of bump up that height a little bit. So I used a height fill, and then to get this kind of wrapped form here, I've just found some simple lines here in the patterns. So there's some simple patterns you can use to kind of affect some of those channels. So I grabbed a simple like rectangular form, had that repeat across the height channel, and then rotated it so it actually affected the bar tape here. And I did it twice. So this section of the drops here has that kind of rectangular form affecting the height channel. And then on the flats at the top here is another section. And the cut itself is right underneath the form. So you can kind of see that cut there. Again, like I didn't even get that little part perfect. But I'd use that cut. So it looks almost like you're wrapping the bar tape compared to like trying to model that, which would have taken forever. Again, Gravity Sketch was getting kind of close, but I still spent an hour with the headset on trying to model out the bar tape, and it just was not happening the way I wanted it to.
That's okay. I did share the link on how I did the wraps of my Santa Cruz hand on a weird shape. There's a few ways you could do it with like you could set up polygroups with like slice curve. You could even too just use like we have now these curved flats that kind of just give you a nice strip of polygon, and you can actually just quickly with curves. I'll show you sometime too, where it just wraps around an object, and you can get these individuals. So if you really want the geometry, that could be a way. But you're right, it's always going to take time when you want it to look good. So
yeah, it's really interesting to see it being done like in the material this way, because I'm very much like the similar kind of workflow. I'm not a very good modeler, so I do a lot of. I'm like, what can I do? What can I like cheat in the material? And so I think it's cool to see how you've like done that and worked that out in Substance.
Yeah, and the way I tried, and this is kind of my workflow for the past couple years now, is I tried to look at a project and break it down in terms of, all right, what needs to be, especially for industrial design stuff, what actually needs to be machined out. Like if I have to actually 3D print that or send it to a manufacturer to be made, I have to model that. Like that needs to be perfect. Like that's, end the line there. For everything else though, I try to break down. I was like, all right, is it large asset? Is it medium or is it small? So large stuff, model that out. Medium stuff, maybe try displacement maps or and height maps if that actually comes to pass. And then small stuff, maybe a normal map would suffice. That's like a very generalizing a lot of stuff there. But just try to break that down in my head and be like, all right, when I'm looking at a project for the first time, it's like, okay, what can I get away with materials? What can I get away with some other process where I don't have to model absolutely everything? Because modeling every single bolt would drive me insane.
yeah. And it's a great approach to getting something that looks really good, So no, 100%. That's an awesome approach, and I'm gonna go try that myself too. That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. And I think the last little thing we kind of talk about here, actually, it's really subtle, but I love this kind of glossy effect here on the wheel set itself. And so to do this, I have the base. I have that base color or the base material for that wheel set, just like a powder coated metal material that I had. And then for the actual I'm talking about these little black glossy highlights there. What I did here in Painter was, again, used it might be on here. Let me turn that one off. There you go. So I just used a simple shape, but what's nice in Painter is you can dictate different shapes. And when I'm talking about shapes, meaning these kind of like black and white, gray or grayscale images down here, you can have these affect certain channels or certain effects in the program. So I have this shape set up in a mask, and I'm having it affect just the roughness here. Actually, it shouldn't be the color too, but it's just affecting the roughness here. And so the base roughness value of this metal is probably like, around 50% there, but I dropped the roughness down to 0, where I wanted those kind of like cross section pieces there. So it's super glossy and shiny. So the contrast between the matte metal and the glossy pieces looks really nice. And because I'm only affecting the roughness, it's keeping all the metalness properties of that base form and all the normals intact, and kind of see if it's picking up all the normal map detail right there. So it's a nice way to kind of get multiple effects without trying to be like, I have to find the matte version of the material and I have to find the glossy version of the material. It's like, it takes a little bit of time to work, but once you understand like how PBR materials work, you can really take advantage of different material properties to kind of push it the way you want it to look. So that, I think that's most of the bike. And again, if anybody in the chat has a question like, how I did that or what's going on, I can, happy to talk about that.
Yeah, actually, I mean, no questions so far, but just as a reminder to chat, if there are any questions, we're going till 10. Unless I've
actually got a question, if that's okay. So what you're doing here is you're taking kind of like the substance textures, like the pre-made ones. You were saying, thinking about the layers, which I love that. Like I do the same thing. Think about like them as like their individual texture maps and how you can use it. Does that work best in this case because it's like a hard surface thing? Like what if you were creating like organic food type textures? Would you do a similar kind of thing, or would you maybe look at building a bit more inside?
Yeah, actually. So, and again, this is my kind of observations, But I found a lot of times when dealing with organic stuff, I mean, depending on what the organic thing is, like you can get away with a lot more. So I have grabbed some like weird materials and I'd scale it up or down, like to get like, I want the banana skin to actually look a little bit more wrinkly in this way, or, you know, some sort of like leaves to look accurate. I have grabbed some bizarre materials. Like I think there's an alien planet texture in the Substance library, which we can do a super quick search for. And I use that. Alien. Oh, it's going to materials there. So there's some like really weird like alien materials that are in the Substance library, but I've grabbed a couple of these and used them for like I think it might have been this one. I use this for like a croissant, so you can kind of see here like the preview, like all the SAR materials, like they have different presets. If you hover over them in the webinar or say the web viewer here, you can kind of see what they look like. So even just to kind of show students in my class, like I think it was this one because it has like those nice kind of sharper ridges in that second preset. I grabbed that, removed every single channel except for height, and then to put that on a croissant form, and it looks pretty accurate. Like a little bit of tweaking, but yeah. I use that as a demo to say like, hey, like you can take some weird stuff and reuse it for other projects.
Oh. No, that's cool. That's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that's super cool. So we actually do have some questions. That opened up questions.
Yeah.
So one of the first questions was that I saw. It's a quick question about baking in Substance. When baking high to low poly, should I use my low with at least one subdivision for the overall bake, for an overall better bake?
Ooh. That is a good question. I will actually defer that to Wes. So in kind of like in the background, what I'm doing, like I have a very simplified knowledge of baking. Like I'll just kind of like brute force it a bit for my own workflows. That's coming from my background for industrial design. Like my background is like when I'm making a model, everything has to be 1-to-1. So I don't have the best ways to optimize meshes, especially for like VFX or game production work. Wes, though, who's coming in next week, his background is in games, and he will give you like the perfect answer with really accurate details on that. So I might defer that one a bit because I'm very much the model is perfect or it is not for a lot of stuff.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Let's see here. So, all right. So I'll copy and paste that one and I'll like set that aside too, especially for Wes there. Perfect. Thank you. Boop. And then, can we use imperfection map in the same manner? I assume it's what you're talking about with like the wheel stripes and the roughness.
Yeah, they say what was map? Was it
imperfections map?
Imperfections map.
Maybe that user.
So like I think it might be referring to, you know, like surface imperfections that you can get like scratches, like levels of roughness, like a grayscale texture map.
Yes.
In there.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways you can go about doing that. Can you repeat like what? So, and then the question is asked about the maps. What was the application that I was looking for doing that?
It looked like the same ways in which you were talking about the stripes on the wheels there. How you were pulling off the roughness and getting that grayscale effect. But maybe that user could. Oh, detail maps. There we go. He said detail maps. Mini terms, same thing. So he's saying the detail maps was the proper term, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can kind of go about like adding more details or like, you know, imperfections if you want to go back to that too. So one of the things, actually, let's just what would be the better? Let's do the bike frame itself. So in Painter, like let's say I wanted to add some imperfections or extra detail, or I wanted to show like a variant, like maybe this bike is covered in mud, for instance. There's a few different ways to go about doing that here. So let's just grab, I think I have a mud material here. Grab that. So let's say I wanted to show this bike covered in mud, but you know, if I drag and drop a mud material on there, okay, that looks fine, but obviously that's not going to be applied unless you like hydro dip this bike in mud. In Painter though, so if you apply a mask to that, on the mask channel, there are these generators, which you can find this little magic wand looking icon here. So these generators can go in and add extra details, imperfections, and it will take those baked mesh maps. So it'll take your position map, ambient occlusion maps, it'll look at all of these other mesh map types here, and kind of with like position, inclusion, etc. It will reference those, and it will apply the kind of base material that you have here naturally where it thinks that effect might happen. So with that generator applied to the mask, if I click on generators down here, I have a few options, and I'll walk through some of the other ones, but there's a generator for dirt. And if I activate that, what it will do is it will look at those mesh maps, and it'll try to apply dirt naturally where it thinks dirt might accumulate. Obviously here, maybe not the best result, because again, there's some dirt up there, but we can get these sliders here with those generators to affect the amount. We're going to give some contrast to it to kind of like see like, okay, maybe I just want dirt to accumulate like where there's creases here, because it's looking at the ambient occlusion map to kind of apply dirt in those areas where like the shadows are more intense, so dirt might accumulate more naturally there. And that's could be one way to kind of give some more imperfections, add some more extra detail to it. And again, we can go in and paint that out because some of these areas might be a little bit too intense here. But generators are a super nice way to add extra imperfections and details across your model, especially like scratches, fingerprints, all that sorts of thing. Not only those are generators, if we go down here to your library, and I'm just going to remove mud. Down here are these smart masks, and these work kind of similar to what the generators do. So we can take these smart masks like maybe, this ground dirt here, and we can drag and drop that onto our material. And it will, again, just like those generators, it'll apply a couple of different adjustment filters here and affect the bike itself. And again, it's looking at those mesh maps for reference there. We can adjust those balances, contrast, or you can invert it there. So that's one way to kind of add some extra detail, some imperfections, some other like nuance to your model. So it's not just like the perfect clean form there. Hopefully that answered the question. I think that's what they might have been asking.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Awesome. Thank you. I know we don't have too much time. Elly, did you see a question? If not, I have one more question as well. Might be a quickie.
Yeah.
So there were a couple that have come in. So Ian, have you been looking at Restream? Because I'm looking at StreamYard.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at both. Yeah.
Yeah. Have we discussed the one about the rock solid method for getting displacement from ZBrush to Substance?
Did not see that one. So that's more of a show and tell for sure. But what I can say is basically like if you're going to get a displacement map in ZBrush, the best thing to do is make sure that you put a morph target onto the first layer before you start any sculpting whatsoever. And when you're going to do the displacement map, you want to switch back to the untouched mesh through the morph target, and then that will actually generate, and then you can generate the displacement from there, and that will give you the difference. You want to be on the lowest subdivision level when you do that. So there is a little bit of a workflow, and I can actually cover that in my live stream on Wednesday. That could be a little quick tip that I do just before I start the actual sculpt process of my project. So I can go more in depth on that one.
Cool. Yeah, and I can talk. I know we have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to speed through the last section.
Okay, perfect.
Which sorry, Elly, I know it's Redshift, so I'm going to speed through it, unfortunately. But,
no, you're good. You speed away.
That's on everything. So model photogram, did the photogrammetry process for the bike, remodeled the bike, painted the bike. So now we're going to go render the bike. And just like the webinar, it's short on time here. So I was like, all right, it's going to be as efficient as possible. So after I brought the bike in, it's a little bit hard to see with the kind of exposed lights there. After I brought the bike in, I applied the materials. I'm using Redshift here to render as well, by the way. And the thing that saved me the most time, and do a little shout out, call out to the team there, is I absolutely love the Grayscale Gorilla team. Their plugin, especially the lighting one, has been so helpful in terms of like, I just need to get a quick, beautiful render out. I don't want to think about my lights. Their lighting tools have been fantastic. So yeah, I dropped it. Again, it's a very simple setup here. I brought the bike in, all of those substance materials. Again, I just had to translate that. I know there's the substance engine as well. So if you want to bring in the base materials, there's good extensions here. There's a substance engine. So if I didn't do anything in Painter, like I just had like a simple material that I'm applying right onto a model directly without any custom work applied to it, This Substance engine here underneath extensions, I can drag and drop SPSARs here. These, however, though, they were all custom made in Painter, so I had to set them up with the Redshift standard materials here. And then, yeah, I just dragged in the Grayscale Gorilla top-heavy product lighting here. And the final result, just to kind of speed through it. That was wow, it's like a 1 or 2 minute chat. I tried to go as fast as I could there, but yeah, the final result here with Redshift is here. Yeah, so I adjusted the exposure a little bit in the scene and the lighting rig itself, and then set up a Redshift camera with just kind of focused, use like a little bit of different like lens effects there, but a pretty simple, just clean setup for the final shot and render here. So yeah, I think that covers everything from start to finish. Very lot to cover or talk about, but we went through it all.
Yeah, no, it looks great as well. And yeah, I agree with you. The Grayscale Gorilla, like everything that they do, all the assets that they provide are, really incredible. Great to have.
Oh, that's fantastic. Any more questions too in the chat about how speedy that was?
Yeah, we can go back and talk about any of the other any of the steps and processes. I just wanted to make sure we touched on everything, just so it's there.
Yeah.
Somebody's saying, he is saying Grayscale or dropping a name like Grayscale. Oh, so do you want to elaborate on the Grayscale Gorilla?
Yeah, so Grayscale Gorilla, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They started off as like a training platform for Cinema 4D, like as a third-party one, and now they've been getting into creating their own assets and their own hub. So here is their kind of hub, what it looks like at the plugin. And they have a bunch of different plugins and effects. So they have stuff that control some of the animations on your scene if you want to do simple different like MoGraph effects. I have all of them plugged onto my desktop here and to my laptop, so I just have simple lights here because I know my laptop, if I try to render out animation, it's just gonna crash. So don't even bother with some of those. But the light setups here have been fantastic because they're kind of drag and drop. Where if you go up here to their plugin, down here they have this Light Kit Pro setup, and if I click on this Light Kit browser and load up the browser, they provide a ton of different lighting scenarios here. So they have like, super fun ones with like different like light effects. If you want to do like neon colors, and all this can be adjusted too, by the way. And they have like beautiful like product rendered lights. And if I wanted to change something here, I'm just going to delete this one because I already have it here. Let's say I don't like this light setup and I need something else. I can click on that light rig that they have, go to their browser, and then say like, oh, maybe I want like this sunset one here. I can double click on any one of these and take a second for it to pop, but it will adjust the lighting in the scene and everything else that's associated in that kind of parent tree here. I don't need the spheres though. And pretty quickly, I can go and explore like a ton of different light effects and lighting setups with their plugin. So that's been super nice just to be like, all right, I have zero time. I just want to get a beautiful render out. And it's been super helpful just to get some nice renders, different light setups, which is that little tool in the plugin. Maybe not the best light up setting up there, but that's why I can go ahead and go change that. Also, that's really blue for some reason. That's weird.
It's glowing. It's
yeah.
You got to have reflectors on your bike. You can't be riding.
Yeah, it's the little effect piece.
Exactly. That's really cool. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming in and showcasing that workflow, that process. A lot of what we're trying to do as well is showcase, how our tools connect with other tools that a lot of artists use on a day-to-day basis. So this was amazing to come through and see that nice start to finish. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it was super fun.
Do you want to tease a little bit about next week's?
Yeah, me or Ian or... Yeah, because I think I already teased a little bit about it. I can kind of go into more detail. Yeah. So next week we'll have Wes McDermott come on, and they're going to be working him and Ian going to be working on a more creature, like organic process. So Wes is the head of the evangelism team. So he has like you've probably seen him actually quite a bit because he's the face of a lot of tutorials. If you ever go to any conferences, he's at the majority of them in the US. So he's going to be speaking on a lot more of the organic side of the substance material set.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, so we're going to have a lot of fun next week. So definitely tune in as well. And any final questions? I know we got like just a couple minutes, but we had a question pop in. Any quick way to bridge Substance in Cinema 4D Octane?
Yeah. Actually, I think we were all talking about that. So I think I'm not making to speak on, but I know we're in conversations. There is that Substance extension. There's a few things that are a little buggy right now. I know the teams are talking to kind of update some of that. But yeah, the quick way is the Substance extensions. You can bring in SBSAR materials in Painter now. When you go to File Export, in the past you have to export out every single texture map, so your normal height, etc., and then drag them in one at a time. You can go into Painter and export as an SBSAR now. So each piece of your geometry will have its own like material. So then you can drag and drop the SBSR ideally right into Cinema 4D, and instead of trying to plug in each map one at a time, it's just the one material that you just drag up onto your model. So I think there's a couple things you need to kind of tweak on that. I know the engineering teams are chatting with each other, but that's going to be a super fast way to bridge between the two.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Yep. And yeah, that's the thing. There's always so much with these. Like we could talk for hours and hours and hours about every little step along the way. But this is like always a good way to just get that information out so then people can go and try it. And if you're watching or you're rewatching this again and you made it all the way to the end, first off, thank you so much. But feel free to go and try these processes yourself. I always say as a trainer that the time behind the wheel is the best way to learn, and just going in. So don't be afraid to break a bunch of stuff. Don't be afraid to try it, because every time you do something, you're going to remember, ooh, that didn't work or that did work. And then you just make those little notes to yourself. And then before you know it, you're just going to constantly do the thing that works. And then you too can get it happening. So that's the way I like to present it. So
yeah, no, it's good to get hands-on. And the other thing too is I'll tell my students, like, it's especially when picking up a new program for the first time, there's tons of tutorials online, but I try to aim my students towards the stuff where it's like just getting in and just making something fun without having to think about any technical. The technical and all the advanced stuff that will come over time, but especially for new programs, just make something fun, just enjoy it, because as long as you're enjoying it, you want to learn it. If you go in hating it, then you're just going to drop it and stop it.
No, exactly. That's honestly like I built my career on fan art. I mean, I would just do the stuff I loved all the time, and it just got better and better. So I 100% agree. Wise words, Nick. Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. No, this has been super fun.
Sweet. Well,
it's been great. It's been great having you on. Yeah. Thanks for showing us that amazing workflow and that great final render as well.
Yeah. And I'll be, Wes next week. It's blast. Like you have a lot of fun with the webinar too.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Well, okay, well then that's a wrap, everybody. So again, thank you all for showing up. Elly, any last words?
No, just definitely join us for the next 3 weeks.
Yay! Nick, any last words?
No, just it was super fun, and thank you for having me.
Perfect, awesome. Yeah, go get that free T-shirt, everyone, and we will catch you next week. Cool. Ciao.
Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.